Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Get ready for Talking Heads, the show where expert insights meet world-class education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Brought to you by USA Global TV and Radio. Meet our distinguished presenters. From the great state of Texas, longevity expert, award-winning author, publisher, and distinguished Toastmaster, Red O'Loughlin. From London, England, soul heart awakener, novelist, vocal coach, and artist, Dr. Madeline Chan. Also from England, the Harley Street Stress Expert, therapist, ambassador for peace, and speaker, Carolyn Heward. And from Australia, ICF PCC credentialed coach, entrepreneur, and leadership coach, Mariska Dupria. Experience their expertise, connect with their wisdom, and transform your perspective. Watch Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. This video and its contents are the property of USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. Visit usaglobaltv.com for more details.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Caroline Heward and I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. I'm also the channel's resident therapist and TV presenter and run my own shows on a Monday with a woman's prerogative. And I co-host the show, The Listening Mentor, which is part of the package of the shows that I produce during the month. So I do 2 Listening Mentor shows and 2 Talking Heads. I'm an expert presenter and today's topic is part of the Mind and Body Connection series. And our topic today is rediscovering you as after a long-term relationship. You after a long-term relationship, rediscovering who you are after the aftermath of a relationship. So when you are rediscovering and looking at what didn't work, when you become alone for the first time after a long-term relationship, there is challenges in terms of working out who you are and who you represent and what you like and what you don't like, what your identity is, what you stand for. And what happens when you're in a long-term relationship, identity can change. Identity moves you into a very different space because when you're together with someone for a long time, your relationship with the other person almost shrouds your personal identity. So let me explore that a little bit in terms of when you're with someone, you'll then compromise and make amends in terms of what you prefer to do versus what the other person prefers to do. And you move forward in terms of finding a way for both of you. So let's look at when a long-term relationship ends, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a long-term relationship that you've been living with someone, or a long-term relationship that you've been in that you're not living with the person, but you've been in for a long time. There are regular things that you do. There's patterns of experiences that you do, like friends, groups, things that you did together as part of your experience of being that couple. And when it ends, no matter who ends it, whether it's yourself or the other person, there is a split of who you stand for, who you are, what you like, what you don't like, and what feels right for you. So let me explore a little bit about that in terms of sharing some of my personal story with you. When I was in a long-term relationship and I was together with my then husband for 9 years, married for 5, but we were together for 9 years. Even though it was a difficult marriage and I wasn't happy, there was a space of time that when we split up and I was alone in the house that we shared and completely alone, I felt an uncomfortableness about that aloneness. It was the first time I was alone for a long time. I don't think I'd ever been alone. I went from the family home to the marital home, and being alone wasn't an easy thing for me to do. I was used to noise, I was used to people, and I was used to things, noise and activities of other people within the home environment. And I went from my family home, which I was one of 6, and I went to the marital home where I was one of 2 people, so a couple. And when that changed, that was difficult, even though I was dreadfully unhappy. So let me give you some insights as to why that changed and why it was difficult. It was difficult because even though it was challenging in the relationship, I hadn't been in a position of being on my own. And this is what happens for a lot of people after a long-term relationship, whether it's a good relationship that's turned into a friendship and no longer an intimate relationship, or whether it's a relationship that is a complete war zone, it still is a severing of emotional, physical and emotional ties, as well as mental ties. And even though it might have been challenging and you're almost relieved that it's over, that you're not in that space anymore, it can be difficult because you have to find your pathway to be on your own, in your own company, and in the aftermath of that relationship. So there is an emotional time of transition. And that emotional time of transition, it involves the initial aftermath of that breakup, which can involve a grieving process. Even though the person is still alive, there will be some form of grieving process. It's worse from somebody actually dying because the person is still alive. And there is, in that grieving process, the same elements of grieving: sadness, loss, disbelief. There's a period of adjustment, of acceptance, forgiveness. And this breakup and grieving of the breakup, even if it's amicable and you part as the best friends and it's just the best thing for both of you to do, it can still be difficult because you're grieving somebody that's still alive, and there is no ritual around that. There is no way to move through that. And that can be challenging in itself. And that's primarily challenging because you are used to being part of a couple. And so it's a readjustment physically, mentally, and emotionally about being a single person. And when you've been part of a couple, there is the conversation around you of being that couple. And suddenly the invitations, you're not a +1 anymore, or the invitations stop. One couple invites another couple and the invitations stop. And so there is an element of redefining who you are as a single person, kind of getting back out there. Before you do get back out there, it's important to have some recognition of how to move back out there, how to be yourself in your new world of being single. Because if you've been together for a long time, especially as I was with my then partner when I was married for 9 years, that was almost a decade. And by the time we were actually divorced, it was over a decade. And times had changed, times had moved on. when I first met my then husband, there was no social media to speak of as it is today. I met my then husband back in 1996. And so there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no YouTube, there was no social media and social platforms and online connectivity in the way that it is today. I remember getting my first mobile in 1996, and that was an achievement because I'd kept away from getting a mobile because I didn't need one. And he persuaded me to get a mobile. And I remember sending my first text message in the early noughties. So even though it doesn't sound very long ago, it was a huge change for me to be single again. And many things had changed. There was so much more online activity. And so in that breakup, in terms of adjustment, there was a mental adjustment as well as a physical one. And I chose, and this won't be the same for everyone, I chose not to do online dating because I wanted to meet people in the reality world. I was very much a social person, and so I did the social things. I had a good social network, and I got back out as a single person in the social environments of friends and the social environments that I was a member of, and in groups of friends and activities. But the breakup, the first thing to acknowledge is to accept it, accept that it didn't work, accept and acknowledge that the breakup is final. And in that acceptance, and it can take some people quite a while to accept that the breakup has been the breakup. And in doing that, there is a form of stigma in terms of anybody coming out of a long-term relationship that didn't work. There is also the pressure of financial adjustment, where you were sharing a home with another person, or maybe a family if you had children, and then you are then isolated on your own and having to manage all of the bills on your own and all of the additional costs of running your own home without being part of a couple. So there is a financial adjustment to make, as well as an emotional one about the breakup. And there is also a physical adjustment in terms of moving what was your home and moving to a place that feels safe, comfortable, and feels good for you to be in while you are processing the breakup, while you are adjusting, and while you're moving through that grieving process. Now, many people move back to their parents, move back to the family home. Many people move in with friends, and they land up from a home of their own where they were the man or the woman of the home, and they move into a home where they're in a bedroom on their own, in a box room in their family home, or even sofa surfing. So there is a physical adjustment to make in terms of finding your way through what's right for you. And there is no right way to move forward. There is only your way of moving forward. And your way is the right way. Nobody can tell you how to do it. I didn't move back to my family parents' home. I stayed on my own, and I got through that challenge of being on my own by adjusting to solo life. And that's the big key here, to adjusting to coming from being a couple to being a person that's single and has an individual identity. Many times we lose our identities within that couple. And so in order to find our way forward, it's about finding a pathway to feel comfortable to do things on your own, to do things where you're going out and doing things with friends as a single person and not as part of a couple. And that can be a huge, not only physical, but emotional and mental adjustment as well. It's important to feel comfortable to feel, whatever it is that you feel, to be okay with whatever emotions come up. even if the relationship wasn't working and you may have parted as friends, or it may have been acrimonious. However the breakup was, it's important to be able to feel safe, to acknowledge and to feel comfortable in the emotions that you feel, whether it's anger, sadness, loneliness, whether it's frustration, anxiety, whatever it is that you're feeling, to allow whatever feelings come up, that it's perfectly okay, whatever you are feeling. Now, there is a level of anger when a breakup happens, because that is part of the adjustment, and anger is part of the grieving process. And my invitation to you is to allow yourself to feel whatever it is, even if it's anger. But my caveat on that, or my invitation to you, is if you are feeling anger from wherever you are feeling it, is to process the anger in the way that's more acceptable and more manageable from a therapy place. Many people will vent their anger onto others, and then they feel better because they've released the anger. This is not good for you or the other person that you are venting your anger at. And more importantly, it's not great to go forward and find anger in that strategy of venting at others so that you feel better. That's called, in the therapy world and counseling world, transference, where you are angry about some things and you are transferring that anger to someone else. And when you're transferring that anger, you are feeling better because you have got rid of the anger. But that doesn't make the situation better. That only alienates those around you that are there for you, that are in your space, and that alienates the relationships that you have gone to and makes your experience of your moving forward much more difficult. So the power of perspective, when you are in the aftermath of that long-term relationship, moving forward, it's important to recognize that it was part of your journey. You can't deny it or decry it. It was part of your journey and part of your process of gaining learnings and wisdom and growth. And just going back to my personal story, although it was very challenging, I was actually living in Birmingham at the time in a family home, and I moved to London. It took me 3.5 years before I made the move from one city to another. And it was a huge deal because I was giving up my social life, my friendships, my activities. I was giving it all up and moving in with the person that I loved, that I wanted to marry. And that was huge. And because I gave up my life and I moved to a new city, I had to start again. I had to create a network. I had to create the work, the business around me. So it all worked. And there was a lot of recreating life for me. And I did recreate life. I created communities. I belonged to various different professional groups, and I moved into activities and friendships and circles that gave me a really big life. And I made my life in London. And then the marriage collapsed. And I'd made so much life of my new life in London that it was difficult to give it up. I'd created a business there. I developed a practice in Harley Street there. And it was really hard to walk away from my new city. And this is what can happen, that we can move towns, cities, countries, and we can set up a new life. And that's even more challenging when we do that and we find that we haven't got something to go back to because we've recreated a new life. And that was one of the reasons why I stayed in London. And I stayed in London from 1999 to 2023. So I stayed there for a much longer time than I was married. I was longer there single than I was married. So what is this saying? is that I moved into single life in the way that was right for me. And it was, the challenges were right there in front of me. And this is what can happen, that it's very easy to retreat back into your old life. But what about creating a new one in your new environment rather than going backwards? Sometimes the finances make it difficult and challenging to do that, or your location or your work make it difficult. The perspective I want to offer you is creating a life after a long-term relationship that rediscovers who you are, that rediscovers, and it's an adventure rather than a trauma. It's an adventure of looking out for who you are, rediscovering who you truly are versus who you became in your long-term relationship. So what I'm looking at here is inviting you to reframe how you are looking at the breakup of your long-term relationship, whether you were in a marriage, whether it has some legal implications, or whether you were in a long-term living with the person or a long-term relationship where you were living apart. Look at it as it was an opportunity for you to grow. Sharing a little bit about my story again, I would never have moved to London if it hadn't have been for the marriage. And so I have a lot of gratitude for the fact that I moved from one city to another and the opportunities that it gave me in terms of my work and opportunities to experience different things that wouldn't have been possible if I'd have stayed in my hometown with the family, and different opportunities of being able to work and train and do things that wouldn't have been possible in my locality within the family environment. And so I looked at all the things that were possible that I was able to do that I didn't do and I wouldn't have been able to do if I'd stayed and gone back to the family home. So looking at this as an opportunity for your growth, an opportunity in terms of looking at the positives of your life changes. And when you're looking at the positives of your life changes, you're then on the path to rediscovering yourself. You're on the path to reconnecting with your personal identity, because we do lose our identity as being part of a couple. I remember not feeling that I was very confident about doing certain things, and I let my then husband do what I would call the man things, and he would do the man things and I would do the girl things. And sometimes we do that when we're in couples. We allocate or give jobs to each other that we just naturally do because maybe of our gender or maybe of our comfortableness. And I remember not feeling very comfortable to do technical things at that time. And my then husband was very much a technical person. He was very much into the technology and brought me quite a long way in terms of exploring and developing my own needs, personal needs for technology within my business and my work. So I have a lot to be grateful for to him, and I didn't really bother to learn too much. I didn't bother to keep my computer up to date because I didn't know how to do it, and he would do that for me. And so there were roles that we played and roles that we got into, and I had to learn how to do those things. And so I did call upon friends that would spend hours trying to sort out a virus on my computer, and didn't feel very comfortable in doing that. And I thought, I have to be independent. I have to be able to sort this out myself. And if it has a cost to it, then I just have to sort it. But I was quite an independent person. So there is a struggle when you become a single person out of that relationship as a couple, and being a single person out of that relationship. It may be about learning new skills and new talents that perhaps you thought that you weren't good at, but you find your team, and you build a team of people around you, either friends where you do a swap or an exchange, or you actually find the right companies to work with. And I'm going to give a little bit of a shout out here because it's something that has really helped me along the way with technology. And there was, when I was struggling, I was Googling, and it said there was, I actually was Googling, I want someone to talk me through it. And there was a company called Talk You Through Your Technical Woes. And I thought, that's it. And I went with them for a long time. And then there were some things that they couldn't do, and some things that they said I needed more skilled people to look after me. And then I moved to Microsoft. And I thought, well, gosh, that's going to be really expensive. It wasn't. And I've been with them for decades. And I was really surprised. They create the viruses and they can sort them out. And it was untapped support. And I'm giving a shout out because we do live in a lot of technology updates and advances. And so it's important. I felt it was important for me as at that time, a non-tech person, to feel safe, to feel that I had somebody in my corner that could help me with some of the things that I hadn't got a clue how to solve. And from my perspective, I thought, well, if Microsoft are the ones that are creating the problems, perhaps they're the ones that can solve the problems too. And I've been with them and stay with them. And that is a shout out because I have been greatly taken care of over the years, and it's helped me understand more about my technology. Why have I shared that with you? Because these types of things can cause some challenges, especially in today's world, especially in our technological world of today, that we have to be upkeeping our technology. And if we don't, we fall by the wayside. And especially in our current times of AI, I've been a little bit bamboozled with the AI and resisted, and I've been dabbling with going into exploring AI just on a very small basis, and I've been amazed at how incredibly powerful it is and what can be done with AI. And I've only just probably scratched the surface, but I've been exploring because I'm now not afraid. And this is where you move into a place of where you lack skills, or where your partner was the skilled person in those areas, finding people, allies around you that have those skills, or buying those skills from companies, or indeed moving forward into a place of upskilling yourself in the areas that you didn't feel comfortable in. And you have to manage what you need to manage. And for some, it might be cooking. For some, their partner might have done all their cooking. And so then it's learning to cook. For some, it might be housekeeping, that they weren't very good with the finances. They didn't know because they weren't in charge of keeping the bills. And so then all their finances are all awry because they didn't know how to budget, because that was all done for them. So these are all the practical things that when you become single after being in a relationship for a long time, it can have an effect in a very big way. And the things that sometimes we feel uncomfortable to say, to share, because we don't like to feel that we're not coping or we're not doing well. And one of the activities I would suggest is journaling. When you journal, when you write down your thoughts. When I was very young, I used to write a diary. And when I wrote my diary, I would feel better. It was like I put it down onto paper. And I felt different. It was like I got the words out of my head onto paper. So journaling, I feel, is a really good practice to do, to get it out of the thinking and the analysing and what's going around in your mind, to being on paper, so it moves you into a place of inner peace. Exploring new activities, whereas you probably were doing a certain set of activities with your then partner from the long-term relationship, exploring new activities and new ways to find yourself, to rediscover who you are after the long-term relationship. So exploring new activities can be anything from rock climbing, skiing, and, sort of the more powerful out there activities. For me, when I first broke up with my then husband, I went and did a lot of things that were not something that I would normally do. So I did a lot of training, and in that training I was pushing myself and my physical limits of what I would explore. So I walked on fire in 2007. I did that with Tony Robbins. And that was really not done through bravado, and, sort of, it wasn't done from that space, from my perspective, of ego. It was done from a space of breaking through something. It was a metaphor for breaking through what was on the other side. I did board breaks. I did about 4 board breaks, where, again, it wasn't about the sheer force of using your hand to break the board. It was what was on the other side. And I did these activities in training rooms. And it was part of my own education to break through and to find out who I was. And that was my path to rediscovering who I was. And I also did arrow breaks from the throat. I did about 3 of those. Which was very powerful. Again, you write on the arrow what you want to break through from, and the arrow break was from the throat, from the soft bit in the throat. And I've done one very recently too. And I also did a bar bend, so 2 people with a bar bend and bending an iron bar in the middle. And I also swam. Took a rowing boat out, and I didn't know I was going to be doing this and it was in Tampa, Florida. I can't remember quite what the area was, but it was in a sanctuary of wildlife, and I can't remember whether it's crocodiles or alligators, because I think they look the same, but I know they're different. But it was infested in a natural habitat of either crocodiles or alligators. And there was just 2 of us in a rowing boat, and I was in the front rowing the boat. And I didn't have the skills, and my husband, when I was married to him, said I couldn't row a boat for toffee. I was useless, I was hopeless, and he would do it all. And when I realized that there was nobody that was going to row the boat, it was me, I then got a little bit of bravado, and I thought, oh no, but it was a big breakthrough. And I only had to learn technique. And when I learned technique, it was amazing. So that was another breakthrough, going into dangerous territory where I wouldn't normally have gone, to break through the patterns that were limiting me and the patterns of my own personal behavior, of my feeling not good enough. And moving forward in this way of finding out what I was made of, what I enjoyed, what I didn't like. And there certainly were adrenaline rushes that when I had succeeded something, I felt amazing. So I'm not suggesting that you do some of these things, but these are some things that I did to break through the patterns and the chains that held me in terms of feeling lost from that relationship. And I also did a big jump from a crane down into a soft mat. I think it was a 15-foot jump, and that was part of my master's in NLP. And so I did all of these things within a training environment, so there were people around looking after us. And at the same time, these were things that I did to move through. And the power of the mind is quite incredible. That I rediscovered more about me than I actually knew about me. And last year, and I still have to post this up, I've got a friend that's taken videos and pictures, I walked on glass, broken glass. And it was something that I'd seen done, and I was very anticipatory of not wanting to do it, thinking that is just not on my radar. That is just looking too dangerous for me. But I did it. And it was incredible. And I did it because it was, again, another metaphor for breaking through some of the things that were holding me back. As I said, I'm not suggesting that you do some of these daredeviling, crazy things, but I actually shared that I was doing some of these things after my breakup with another colleague that's on this TV global channel. And she was quite in awe of some of the things that I'd done, and I'm in awe of some of the things that she does. But the glamour of it all was that we were sharing some of our transformational things that we do that move us forward to reinventing, recreating, and rediscovering who we really are. And I certainly rediscovered who I really was when I walked on glass last year. The other thing that I would suggest is taking solo trips. And again, a personal share that I wouldn't for some time, and I used to go to concerts with friends and with my then partner. I wouldn't go to concerts. And I had a friend that did a lot of solo things. And I said I couldn't do a concert on my own. It just wouldn't be right. I'd have to share it with someone. And there was one particular concert I really wanted to go to. And it was around my birthday. And I was looking for 2 tickets and I couldn't find 2 tickets. And it was something I really wanted to do. I really wanted to go and see this band. And this band was called Simply Red. And I was absolutely desperate to go and see them on my birthday. And what I did was I stopped looking for 2 tickets and I found 1 ticket in the 4th row from the front, centre stage, which is where I like to be, right in front of the band. And it was in the arena. So I was close up and personal. And that's how I like to do my concerts, really close up and personal. And I was on my own in that concert and I've never looked back. So looking at doing things solo, it changed my experience, because when I'm in an experience, it's not about who I'm going with, because I'm in the experience of what I'm doing. So my meditations, my concerts, anything that I was doing that was an activity, I was amongst people that were sharing that activity. And that helps you find people that are like-minded, like souls, that when you venture out on your own in something that you enjoy, something that you like, it's a hobby, it's an interest, something that you have an interest in that brings you joy, you will meet other like minds, like people and like souls. And this is one of the ways that you can step into creating new friendships and even find that new relationship. It also builds self-esteem. And it brings you into a self-practice, a self-care practice of considering your needs first versus the person that you used to be with, and trying to recreate that couple experience. And it helps you rediscover who you are as a single person by exploring your own inner desires of what makes you feel good. And one of the things that made me feel good was going back into my training, really stepping up my training and exploring things that I perhaps hadn't done previously. I was very much in the soft training things, very much in the mind and the exploration of consciousness. And what I did was I did more exploration in terms of the physical stuff. And setting those small goals moved me into an incredibly wholesome place. When you re-establish your independence, you reinvigorate your single life, and you rediscover being single can actually bring life's joy. Create some routines, create some focus on your own personal growth. What I've shared with you today, even though the breakup was challenging and even though the relationship was difficult, that I personally took it on as a way to grow through personal challenge. And in that personal challenge of growth, I took on all these crazy activities and I moved through in a way that I wasn't expecting to. I was exhilarated that I could do things that I didn't think were possible. And it moved me into a place of inner confidence, it moved me into a place of inner peace, and it gave me an inner sanctum that I didn't need to be with someone to generate that feeling of being whole. Because that's what happens when we're part of a couple for a long time, when we're in a long-term relationship, that being part of a couple almost defines us, defines who we are. And when you are not part of the couple, you have to kind of go into this wild west of working out who you are as a single person. And that rediscovery is a journey, and it's a journey of self. And that journey isn't about hopping into the next relationship. Find out who you are, what you like, what you don't like, how you like to spend your time, what foods you like, what restaurants you like to go to, because it might be different from the types of things that you did with your relationship in the long-term relationship. Approach dating again from a place of comfort. Approach dating again from a place of knowing who you are and knowing what feels right for you. And you will meet and find the right people that make you feel good, that are making you not feel whole, but it will be one whole person meeting another whole person. So some key takeaways: healing, rediscovering, and some words of encouragement. Life is a healing and evolving journey. My call to action is to plan a solo date and stay positive. Stay positive in your journey after your long-term relationship. The aftermath of rediscovering, moving forward and rediscovering you is a journey of self. And I offer you some invitations of exploring it with pleasure and with joy and with both hands. Explore and open yourself up to whatever comes your way. Thank you for your attention and thank you for your interest. Please subscribe to USA Global TV and Radio. You can find all of my Talking Heads episodes under the playlist Talking Heads under the various years. Please do reach out if I may be of service to you. You can contact me on nomorstress@live.co.uk or call me on, if you're international, +44. If you're local, 07523 120 189. I look forward to helping you break through the patterns that are creating your stress, and I can help you break through the blueprints that create your repeating patterns of stress. So let me help you bust your stress. Namaste.
In a world full of noise, misunderstandings, and interruptions, master the art of listening with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is the listening mentor of USA Global TV and Radio and the Amazon #1 best-selling author of Mastering the Power of Elevated Listening. Elevate your listening. Elevate your life. Join a global learning experience in person or via Zoom. Reserve your spot today. usaglobaltv.com/book-your-session or drjacqueline.thinkific.com. Join Dr. Kerbeck's listening courses or hire her to unlock deeper connections and authentic conversations.